The action in Act 1, Scene 4 returns to King Duncan's headquarters, where he enters accompanied by Lennox, Malcolm, Donalbain, and various attendants. He's anxious to find out whether execution has yet been done on Cawdor, the traitor whose title he intends to bestow on Macbeth. His son Malcolm assures him that even though those who were in charge are not yet come back, he has spoken with one that saw him die, who did report that very frankly he confessed his treasons, implored your Highness's pardon, and set forth a deep repentance. The subject of deception now preoccupies King Duncan, as he deplores the way in which he was tricked into trusting the treacherous Thane of Cawdor in the first place. He complains to his son that there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. In other words, he says, there is no skill which allows you to read the truth of a person's character or what they are thinking in their face. Cawdor's outward show of loyalty was merely an act to conceal his treacherous thoughts and actions. No truer words than these are spoken in the play, as the irony is, of course, that Duncan, after having already declared in Act 1, Scene 2, that no more that Thane of Cawdor shall deceive our bosom interest, will go on to do exactly that by trusting Macbeth, who will be the next Thane of Cawdor, in much the same way. Images connecting the face with deceit is a motif which litters the play. Macbeth finally enters to wait on Duncan, accompanied by Banquo, Ross, and Angus, and the king showers him with praise as he assures him that he feels so deeply in his debt that even the swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake thee. In other words, even the quickest reward would be unable to catch up with Macbeth's achievements. And he goes as far as to declare that he wishes Macbeth actually deserved less, so that whatever he rewarded him with would be of an appropriate degree. Macbeth responds graciously by declaring that the service and loyalty I owe, in doing, it pays itself. In other words, serving the king is its own reward. Even though at the end of Macbeth's soliloquy at the end of Act 1, Scene 3, he seemed to have resolved not to act, we wonder how deceitful he is being here when he professes to Duncan that his whole raison d'être is to be nothing but his servant. Your Highness's part is to receive our duties, and our duties are to your throne and state, children and servants, which do but what they should by doing everything safe toward our love and honour. Can we trust him even at this point, especially as he says it in such a complicated and puzzling manner? Duncan is, however, suitably flattered and makes promises to advance Macbeth using a gardening metaphor. I have begun to plant thee and will labour to make thee full of growing, which Macbeth, in this moment, probably interprets to align itself with what he has been told by the witches, as the phrase full of growing could suggest the ultimate prize. Duncan then proceeds to recognise Banquo's achievements as well. Noble Banquo, that has no less deserved, nor must be known no less to have done so, let me enfold thee and hold thee to my heart. Banquo picks up on the king's earlier gardening metaphor with the affirmation that, there if I grow, the harvest is your own. In other words, if he is allowed to flourish in the king's heart, the harvest, or the result of this, the king will be the one to gain, as it will result only in increased love and loyalty towards him. Note the honest simplicity of Banquo's words in comparison with the deceitful complexity of Macbeth's own. Everything seems to be falling into place until Duncan's next words. After excusing himself for crying tears of joy at the happy outcome of the battle, the king declares that we will establish our estate upon our eldest, Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland, the title given to the heir to the throne. Note how Duncan shifts here from referring to himself in the first-person singular I to the first-person plural we, to communicate that he is making an official proclamation. He concludes his speech, blissfully unaware that he has dashed Macbeth's hopes and signed his own death warrant, by commanding him, "From hence to Inverness, where Macbeth's castle is situated, and bind us further to you." The irony is, of course, that that is exactly what Duncan has done. He has unwittingly and irrevocably tied his fate to Macbeth. Macbeth quickly takes his leave, disingenuously assuring the king that the rest is labour which is not used for you, i.e. hard work is the time spent not doing anything on the king's behalf, and making the excuse that he wants to go ahead to warn his wife of the king's imminent arrival. "I'll be myself the harbinger, and make joyful the hearing of my wife with your approach, so humbly take my leave." In an aside, however, he reveals what he is really thinking. "The Prince of Cumberland, that is a step on which I must fall down, or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. Stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see." His ambition, which has been awakened by the witches' prophecies, has blinded him to examining their motivation. Duncan's announcement that Malcolm is next in line to the throne, rather than making him think to himself that they must be wrong, or that the witches have evil intentions as warned by Banquo, or that perhaps he just needs to bide his time, makes him jump to the conclusion that, in order for the prophecy to come true, he has to do something about it himself immediately. The way in which he says, "that is a step on which I must fall down," suggests that now not having the crown amounts to failure in his eyes. No longer a passive recipient of a prediction, he must become active and change the course of fate to o'erleap the step that is in his way, so that the prophecy can be self-fulfilled. He acknowledges that his ambitions or his desires are black and deep, as evil as they are profound, and that he will need to engage in subterfuge and deceit in order to fulfil them. Note Macbeth's use of contrasting imagery relating to light, dark and eyesight, which also will be exploited by his wife later on. For Macbeth, and later Lady Macbeth as well, darkness allows deceit to flourish as heinous acts can be carried out, not only without detection by others, but also so that they can fool themselves that they have not actually done the deed. Here Macbeth tries to separate what his hand does from what his eye or his conscience sees. The scene ends with Duncan responding to Banquo's apparent praise of Macbeth. "True, worthy Banquo, he is full so valiant, and in his commendations I am fed. It is a banquet to me. Let's after him, whose care is gone before to bid us welcome. It is a peerless kinsman." The juxtaposition of Macbeth's deceitful plotting with Duncan's sincere praise and trust in him creates a moment of dramatic irony and a feeling of doom in the audience. Lady Macbeth first appears alone in Act 1, Scene 5, reading a letter from Macbeth outlining his and Banquo's encounter with the witches on the heath, and the subsequent arrival of Ross and Angus announcing his new title. In the letter, which is written in prose, he confesses that he burned in desire to question the witches further, and that he was wrapped in the wonder of it. Lady Macbeth is a pivotal character in the play, who propels the plot, being as she is the driving force not only of Macbeth's ambition, but also of her own. Her soliloquies in this scene, which provide moments of drama and tension, reveal that she is probably even more ambitious than her husband, as she shows she is able to think and act alone. Women in the Jacobean era played a subordinate role to men. Expected to be pious and pure, their lives were restricted to the domestic sphere, dominated by taking care of the house and bringing up children. Lady Macbeth is the antithesis of the archetypal Jacobean woman, and her naked ambition would have been shocking to a contemporary audience. She knows that she does not have the power to control things independently. if she is to fulfil her ambition, which is conditional on Macbeth's, she will need to get him on side. Her resoluteness of purpose is a stark contrast to her husband's toing and froing, her determination shown through the definite future form shalt be, as she remarks on the witch's prophecies, Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised. She is, however, also a very good judge of character. She acknowledges that her husband is ambitious, but believes that this in itself is insufficient without the willingness to commit evil deeds. She believes his nature to be too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. Ambition is associated in this play with being a man, or with having what were considered at the time the masculine qualities of bravery and cruelty. Note the linking of milk with kindness in this metaphor, suggesting that she sees kindness as a peculiarly feminine trait, and that this is incompatible with ambition. She fears that the impediment to Macbeth's gaining the crown is his tendency to dither, as he has deep-held and conflicting values. This she clearly regards as effeminate, as she worries that he would not, or is unwilling to play false in order to get what he so desperately wants. She therefore recognises the need, in order to achieve her ambition for him, to give him her, ironically, more masculine qualities. She wills him to hie thee hither, or hurry up, so that she may pour my spirits in thine ear, in order to eliminate what she perceives as his weakness through her powers of rhetoric, and chastise with the valour of my tongue all that impedes thee from the golden round. An attendant enters and briefly interrupts Lady Macbeth's soliloquy in order to announce the imminent arrival of the king. Note the way in which her language abruptly changes from the abstract and philosophical to the base and depraved, as she shifts from pondering her husband's psychological weaknesses to the violent practicalities of murdering Duncan that very night. Indeed, death is immediately on her mind as she resolutely exclaims that the raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Note the way in which she likens the messenger who was almost dead for breath, or breathless, to a hoarse raven, widely considered a bird of ill omen, as it, an eater of carrion, was always found on battlefields, and how she describes Duncan's entrance to her castle as fatal. She refers once more to the difference between men and women as she calls upon the spirits to unsex her, or to remove her femininity, and fill her from the crown to the toe topful of direst cruelty. We can see here that in contrast to her husband, Lady Macbeth does not wrestle with her conscience before the murder in the same way that he will go on to do. She chooses instead to focus on preventing any guilt or remorse she may feel that could stop her going through with it. She commands the spirits to make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Compunctious means characterised by guilt or moral scruple that either prevents us from doing something bad or follows the doing of something bad. The fact that she links this with nature suggests that she is aware that remorse is a natural emotion and that what she is asking for is totally unnatural. Whether the mortal spirits oblige her up to a point, or Lady Macbeth just fools herself that she is impervious to guilt and remorse, is up for discussion. She then exhorts these murdering ministers or agents of evil to come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall, or to take an otherwise nourishing substance which is symbolic of her femininity, and which she has already linked to the notion of kindness, and to transform it into its antithesis, a bitter poison. Lady Macbeth, in common with her husband, also summons the darkness to hide her actions, not only from herself but also from others and from heaven, as she proclaims, "Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, "Hold, hold." The verb to pall is another word for to shroud, and dun is a dark greyish-brown colour. Note how Lady Macbeth's metaphor here equates darkness with the smoke of hell, and therefore evil. The adjective keen in this context should be interpreted as sharp rather than enthusiastic. Note also how she personifies the weapon she will use. In giving the knife a sense of agency, she is able to distance herself from her actions. Her soliloquy is interrupted once more, this time by the entrance of Macbeth, whom she addresses by his new titles while also alluding to his future title of king, greater than both by the all hail hereafter. When Macbeth reveals that Duncan intends to leave the next day, she exclaims, "Oh, never shall sun that morrow see," and she chastises him that his face is a book where men may read strange matters. Macbeth doesn't appear to have a good poker face at this point, and she is clearly afraid that he will inadvertently give them away. She gives him some advice. To beguile the time, look like the time, bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue. Here she encourages him to act the part of a loyal subject. He needs to look or appear to act appropriately for the time or the event of the king's visit. His eye or his facial expression, his hand or his mannerisms, and his tongue or his words all need to create a false impression of welcome in order to lull the king into a false sense of security. She also urges him to look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Shakespeare combines the subtle differences between a simile and a metaphor in one powerful image to enhance this idea of deceit. A simile is a figure of speech that suggests mere similarity of two separate items, while a metaphor is a figure of speech that suggests the two items of comparison are one and the same. Macbeth, in her opinion, needs to assume the superficial qualities of an innocent flower, presumably of enticing purity and harmlessness, while simultaneously being the evil lurking underneath, ready to bite when the unwitting Duncan comes too close, presumably to either smell the flower or to pick it. The word serpent is clearly a reference to Satan and suggests that Lady Macbeth has totally given both of them up to the power of darkness as she exhorts him to be the devil. This would have been shocking for a contemporary audience. She concludes her speech by telling Macbeth that preparations need to be made and that he shall put this night's great business into my dispatch, or leave everything up to her, after which they will have absolute regal command as they shall be king and queen. All our nights and days to come give solely sovereign sway and masterdom. Note how even at this point Macbeth is not fully committed to the action, merely commenting that they will speak further on the matter. Lady Macbeth appears to ignore this, seemingly interrupting him, as shown by the dash, in order to command him to look up clear, or appear honest and cheerful, as to alter favour, or to change your facial expression, ever is to fear. The pair exit. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.